Good morning. It is Wednesday. It's 9 o'clock, and that means it's time for Norma Cowie Talks Metaphysics, or whatever is the topic that's up for today. And today, basically, because of comments and what I'm hearing or seeing, it's about anxiety and fear. Now, anxiety in some ways can help you get a little clearer on things, but abject anxiety is really a lot about worry and concern about how things are, and it's very mental, very mental. So, anxiety more is a mental element where we can command that if we know how to deal with our thinking and what to do and how to place it, things like that. So, what about fear, though? Fear, the acronym for fear, is false evidence appearing real. In other words, something that is not real and we blow it up, but it's emotional. Fear is emotional. It can make us actually become totally stuck, unable to move left or right or up or down. So there's a tremendous amount that goes into the difference of anxiety and fear. And yet very often they're plunked together. The key is to be aware whether you're just worrying about something that drives the anxiety up as to what to do, how to do it. And I think the majority of people at some point or other have experienced that. I know I have for sure. Do I do this or do I do that? Or what would be the best way of handling this? And so, and you can spend a lot of time like getting your nervous system really in a knot because what am I supposed to do here? How am I going to do that? How am I going to make that work? So all of that. And whereas fear really can leave us totally incapacitated. It's like it takes over. Now, I'm just going to touch onto this is that because of what's happening in our society right now and the changes and the fear factor that is created, a lot of people either want to put their head in the sand and say this is not happening, or it'll pass, or whatever. And others are very concerned and worried and fearful of what's happening next. And so I just thought I would just spend some time just talking a little bit about how to deal and cope and handle the fear. It's one of the first things to recognize is that the worry element, whether it's anxiety or fear, is really the mental element that runs it, and we just cannot see how we're going to deal with things. What are we supposed to do? And often just our everyday person doesn't really believe that they have much power to change anything or even to speak out or what to do, because most people don't want to be punished. And if you had punishment as a kid in particular, I think that runs a little higher. So like if you've never been punished when you're a child, it's not really part of your neurology. But if you have been punished, then your nervous system is a little more geared to that. I believe and think that's just from my own experience that way. So how do we make things bigger? We worry about them and we don't know what to do. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute, because the key is there's always an answer for you. Well, no matter what it is, there's always an answer where you can see a different way of looking, rather than feeling everything is lost or everything is gone or I can't do anything, I'm helpless, I'm hopeless, etc. And that when you're really getting kind of unsure and really uncertain, how much spirituality do you have? How much do you believe in a power that supports you? No matter what's happening in society, no matter what's going on, how are you feeling in relation to your own growth and your own connection? Are you kind to yourself? Do you forgive yourself? Are you even aware that there's a power there that can support you and love you and care about you? All of these things become very, very important when you're dealing with anxiety, whether you're dealing with fear, even though they have a different components. It's really important that you have a sense of the vision of where you want to go and how you want to get there and what you want to do. And that means that you have choice. Sometimes it doesn't feel like we have choice, but we truly do. Where do you want to put your support? Where do you want to be or create or have? What is it like? I have a little one of the cards I pulled out just to sort of have an idea that I'm going to read to you. I am like the calm in the eye of a hurricane. I am like the calm. In other words, are you calm inside? Do you believe? Do you trust? Do you have trust in humanity? Do you have trust in people? Do you have trust in you being able to cope and handle and deal with whatever comes down against the turnpike? I've had a lot of wonderful things happen in my life where, and everything flowed. And then I've had things that weren't so wonderful and didn't flow. And I needed to have that spiritual understanding that I had the strength and I had the purpose and I had, you might say, the insight to keep on going. And when changes happen, because they have changed in the last several years, how do you adapt? Do you say, that's it? I can't do what I used to do, so I have to, not do that? Or do you find a way around that to make that works? Do you have faith in how it's going to happen? When you have a sense of faith and a sense of an element that there is a force for you that loves you and cares about you, then what we find here is another little card that I happened to pick out by accident. I just kind of shuffled them and see. I have no fear, for you are with me. And then your light and your love guide and protect me. Now, excuse me. When we have a belief system of a power that is there for you, and I truly believe that this planet has that this planet is loving, that this planet is emotional and a sentient being. Not many people believe that, but I have come to that conclusion over years of trying to figure a lot of these things out. I just have one of those inquiring minds, There's a show that says the inquiring mind. Well, I used to I would take classes and I would learn, and then I would go away and I'd experiment. And in experimenting, I began to find a lot of the things that I teach or a lot of the things that I work with my clients with, because it made sense to me in a deeper level. And it's like when you have connected into universal love, it's makes such a difference, because even when you move away from it, like you get so caught up in your anxiety or the things you got to do or how you got to do about it, whatever, you have a choice that you can move back into it. And I always say it's only ever a breath away. And I certainly get caught up in all the bits and pieces that I need to do or be there. And, for those of you that know what I've been through the last year, it's like sometimes it's like, oh, dogged, why me? And then it's like, hang on a minute. You're not deserted. You have this energy. You have this support. Was fortunate to have friends that were very helpful as well, and still do have friends that are supportive. But it's like, really, your journey is your journey, no matter what. Your journey is how you cope with it, how you handle, how you want to go forward, and what you want to do and what you want to create. In the tarot, the magician says everything is possible. And that as you aspire above, you can manifest that in the material world. So how do we aspire above? Is the knowingness that there is an energy and a force that we works with. The other thing that magician says, I'm going to show you the card actually, because I have it right here. He says we have all the tools we require. This is on the table here. And the tools are the wands, the cups, the swords, and the pentacles. We have it all. All we have to do is utilize it. We have to use our brains, our thinking. We have to know our feelings and not be ruled by them, but understand them. We have to be able to move. Excuse me a sec here. We have to be able to move through the problems and challenges, because they certainly will come. You know, sometimes people have tough times in different periods of their life. If you talk to an astrologer, that will tell you when that usually comes. But it's like we very few of us have a problem-free life, because how do we grow and how do we become if we're not challenged? If we don't have to get beyond the worry and anxiety and the fearfulness of what's happening now. I have no power and no control. And yet I've often found when things have fallen apart, those are when the biggest openings have happened. That's when I've had all of a sudden everything open up and become, even though it was much more different than I thought it would be. That's the trust that you get when you believe in a higher power. When you perceive that that higher power is there for you, everything is possible, but we need to aspire above to manifest into the material world. Astrologers, psychics, people who look into the future predict some dire stuff. And it can make you feel very, very fearful of what's coming, because it's like we don't have too much control. I know even in our town here, that's like the city council doesn't seem to listen to what people are wanting. They just go ahead and do what they want and deal with the complaints as though they're nothing. It's what it seems anyway. Whether that's real, I don't know, because I'm not at council meetings. But it's like, how do we deal with all that? Do we just feel sad and depressed? Because often that's what happens. We just feel sad. We feel helpless. We don't know what we're going to do. Or our imagination blows things up as to how it's going to look. And right now, there's a lot of information coming out that makes a lot of people unsettled. I really believe that. And it's like, I don't know. Often I know people are being canceled and I always watch what I say a little bit, because I don't really want to be canceled. But I'm aware, I deal with people and they are concerned, and yet they really strive to carry on with their lives the best they can with what they know. And they kind of put a lot of this on the side. They don't want to look at it. It's like it doesn't exist. But the reality is there's a lot of changes, I think, coming up. And that's what I see. And it's like, how do we handle those changes? The main thing is to know that you are always given the power, the strength, the knowingness, the wherewithal to handle whatever comes up, because you're not alone in your journey. And that's the spiritual side of things. That's the philosophical side of things. With whatever you believe in, doesn't really matter how that belief is. I don't think it matters. I know how I've came into the belief structure of it. I mean, besides just being a format I had in my head from when I was a kid that didn't make sense to me too much. But as I grew and trying to figure out what this whole thing was about, I changed my whole perspective and became aware of how much and how important it is to have an energy that is there for you, to support you through. See, often I find that people think that if they ask for something and they expect it to be there, rather than asking for strength or awareness or clarity. They kind of ask to be taken out of the situation or have it solved or whatever. We're the ones that and sort of I'm driving here, driving your life. We're the ones that deal with the issues when they come up. And most lives that I know, and of course I read for people who usually are in some kind of conflict with life, is that we've got to believe that there's an answer. The answer lies within. And as the answer lies within, it's that knowledge, that awareness, that strength that makes us move forward. So we have a choice. We really definitely are given choices here. We're not robots. It seems like I'm saying that a lot lately. We're not a robot. We have feelings, and sometimes feelings overwhelm us, which is why we move into anxiety or even fear. And fear blocks us totally. When we get fearful, I know I've been in that state, and it's like we freeze. We don't really move because we're scared. Or I think it comes down genetically from when there were big wild animals out there and we were hunting, and all of a sudden we're looking at a big wild animal and we got a little puny spear or whatever. I really think that's part of ours. When things get big, it's like we just freeze, and we our fear overtakes us actually, and our tendency is to want to run, but that isn't always the answer, because if you have an animal, the animal can run faster than you can. But it's like we have evolved from that. We have evolved into be able to be maybe concerned and worried and moving into the element of anxiety because we're trying to figure it out, whatever the situation is, rather than trusting we'll have the answers. Prayer, which is what I do on Monday nights, is the alternative prayer that I found. It took me years to figure out a prayer method that wasn't pleading and, please help me kind of thing. And I finally found it, and it works. It gave me great clarity and great strength over the years when I was working through a lot of stuff. To know that we have tools that aid us and help us so that you can be like the calm in the eye of a hurricane. The world can be moving around and you can be solid because no matter what, you're not walking the path alone, that you have strength, you have an inner power, you have clarity. See, a lot of people forget to ask for clarity because when our mind gets involved, there's a tendency to keep thinking the same thoughts over and over and over and over. So we're like on the, it reminds that those little, when you see those little things in the cages and they run around in their little turnaround. And that when you're running like that, it's like there's no openness, there's no new thought. It just, you're anxious. You don't know what to do, except same thought running around and round and round. It's when you learn how to be in command of your thinking, to change your thinking, to have it come in a whole different way, that things begin to open up and you begin to make different choices and move in a different direction of where you're going. But the same thing, if you want a different result, you have to change. If you are in a situation where you're worrying and you feel a lot of anxiety, you have to change. You have to change your thinking to begin with. And the thinking then will change the feeling. Some people think it's the other way around. I have not found that. The thought is the leader. And as I often explain it, it's the framework of your house. It's like building a house, and it's the framework, is your thinking. But the emotion that we are, because we're emotional beings, is what fills the walls in. And that's one of the things that we really need to make sure that everything is moving in a direction that really is helpful and hopeful and brings forth. I have a prejudice, I'll agree, that I believe that there is a force on this that works with this planet and the direction. And why do I believe that? Is because I've traveled the universe looking and through people's soul journeys, and so many planets are purely mental and they don't have the emotional quotient. Others are delightful, I have to admit. There is space, they are more like spaces, healing spaces, artistic spaces, fairy space, other spaces that are kind of very, very, very different in lots of ways. But at the same point, we live on planet Earth. And we often stay here for a long, long, long time. I know for me, for sure. And it's because we need to work ourselves into how to deal with feelings. Because the most planets we've been on didn't have that, didn't have feelings. It was all intellectual, which also means it has a power base and a power struggle, because that's what usually what happens in those thought forms, those places, those things. We have that in our society where people want to control. And so they fight for the control. They want to be in, they want to have it all, have control of everybody without respecting the individual, I think. Jeepers. Sorry about my throat this morning. Sometimes it's early to rise and to do. It doesn't always work easily for me. Anyway, so let's take a look at just a synopsis of what I'm talking about. Yes, we have anxiety at times, and that is more of a mental worry that moves in, and which can literally stop us from moving forward. So we need to be aware of that and to watch our thinking process. And people who know me, I talk about how we can change our thought patterning. So it's very simple to be able to be aware of what it is we're wanting, to remember that everything is possible. And sometimes it's a matter of trust, and trust comes from believing in something bigger than you that's working for you, that is there for you, no matter what, it is there for you. And then there's plain fear. And I think, and that's what happened to us a few years ago, where the world gave away to fear. We were told, blah, 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 blah. And what happened was people bought it. And now find out that it wasn't true. That it wasn't exactly what they said it was anyway. And who were they? The people that are trying to control everything, maybe? But anyway, I'm here not so much to talk about the political element, but rather, how do we handle that as humans? How do we handle the fear factor that is given to us through our media, through our this or that or the other? And it seems like a steady drip. After a while, it's kind of like, oh, what can I do? And I'll just tell you, keep your thoughts the way you want things to be for you. Miracles happen a lot when people just allow themselves to trust the process for themselves and to know that they can move through it all because they're connected. They're connected to a force and a power that is unexplainable, except to me, it's loving. That's a lot. People, we talk about love and light, but it's like light. It's like a lightness of lovingness, of acceptance, so that you are calm no matter what, so that you're able to move forward. But we're humans. And so sometimes we decide we want to be in anxiety or we want to be in fear. And I'm just saying we don't need to be there. We need to understand it, that it has a place, because very often when we come through and break through our anxiety, which is based on your worry, is that you begin to see things in a different perspective. It's like all of a sudden something makes sense to you that didn't make sense before. Or if you're into fear, which really binds us into non-action, is that we begin to do the action so that we can begin to go forward. See, the tarot, which I've been working with for a lot of years, has a lot of answers to these things if you look and get to know. And the first two symbols, the magician, everything is possible. The high priestess, you have choice. You have a choice. You don't ever have to be stuck and be sad and miserable like these two symbols, because these guys are stuck. And it happens. I've been there. Sorry about myself. Poor me. Look at all these, nothing's working the way I want. Everything's gone. What am I supposed to do now? But you see, I knew that everything was possible. And ideas will come to you. These are the wand symbols. here, ideas and thoughts. Even though the thoughts often will make you feel like this or this, no hope, what am I doing? This one in particular says, accept, turn around because what you want is behind you. That's what I love about this tarot deck, created way back, the late 1800s actually, is it always gives you the way out. You're not stuck. You're not left. It shows you there is an answer, a way to go. Often it's not an easy one. It doesn't mean, that you understand particularly all the things you're going to do, but it means that you are supported, that there is a way and you can do it. You can get hold of your thinking. You can accept your feeling and override it and let it subside so that you begin to be aware. So the key really is be kind to yourself. Breathe. Be kind. Forgive yourself for when you're not your perfect self. Forgive yourself. Know that you're part of the whole process of moving through. And anyway, that's going to end my actual talk. And I see a few people have left comments. So I'm just going to address that before I come in to just wrap up totally. Ishkika, always have trouble with her name. May I ask if you don't mind taking this? But by when do you see? Oh, sweetie, I've told you before, Monday nights are for those questions, not now. And so it's like, just come in on Monday nights. That's the easiest thing. And Karen Lee, great talk. Thank you. I appreciate the support. I really, really do. So that brings me to the point of saying, thank you for your subscriptions. We've picked up some new ones. Thank you for the comments. I love your comments. So don't hesitate to put a comment in. I really endeavored to answer them every few days or once a week at least, just to make sure I'm on top of that. I also want to thank you for being, and listen, let me know what topics you'd like me to talk about. I mean, metaphysics is a massive subject. And I know a lot of different psychic things and awareness things. So sometimes I said, what am I going to talk about? Because I've got today and I guess on Sunday with Sunday Thought, like, what do I do? And sometimes at the last minute, a thought will come through, but I'm open to hear what you would like to hear. So please, you can always contact me through my contact page on my website, normacowie.com. You can always just send me an email and say, hey, I'd like to hear about this. And then I'll think about how I can do that. So Yvonne also comes in and says, thank you very much, Norma. It's just so appreciate it. And so now, because we had snow yesterday and it's cloudy and dull again today, the light inside can always shine. You are a light. Remember that wherever you go. Just recognize that life has opportunities no matter what's going on. When the lockdowns happened and I couldn't have clients in, I couldn't have groups in, that's when I began these YouTube shows. And that's when I have gone from 1 to now 3. And it's like, I have loved it and I have enjoyed it. And I'm so glad I'm able to speak to you. And so thank you for your support. It is totally, totally appreciated. So I shall see you Sunday. Bye now. Have a great week. Thanks, Marion.